Next, come to the classification of flow. As I said, that flow can be defined as the act of continuous deformation of fluid. Right now, we have to define how many types of flows are there. Right. So, types of flows you can classify based on the behavior of flow. Right, based on the behavior of flow. Now, they may be. I will classify them into seven category, but if you go with a different kind of scenario, right, you can classify them into 11 category, 11 to 12 categories. So I have put them into total nine categories, right? But they are basically seven types, right? So first is viscous, with invested regions of flow. Second one is internal and external flow, right? Third is compressible with incompressible flow. Fourth one is laminar and turbulent flow. I think though you might have got some information about this, right? From boundary layer concept, if you would have studied from fluid mechanics, right? Laminar, turbulent flow. And natural and forced flow, right? Steady with unsteady flow. Then one, two, and three dimensional flows, right? Then this is the basic definition, right? But I have added here ideal and real flows, right? Then finally rotational and irrotational flows, right? So these are the various types of flows. This is as per the action of flow, right? In what way your flow is taking place. So for different kind of engine devices, different kind of flow patterns will be there, right? Flow regions will be there. These will be one of these types of flows will be existing in different kind of flow machineries. So first one is viscous and inviscid region. So the point when you are talking about viscous and non-viscous, so viscosity will come into impact, right? Where there is a viscosity in the flow domain, that kind of flow domain is known as viscous flow. When there is no viscosity, or you can say there is a negligible amount of viscosity present in the flow domain, such kind of flow is known as inviscid. When there is no viscosity, or you can say there is a negligible amount of viscosity present in the flow domain, such kind of flow is known as inviscid flow. Now, if two fluid layers move relative to each other, a frictional force develops between them, and that slows the layer, right, at speed, and that is known as viscosity, right? This internal resistance to flow is quantified by the fluid property called viscosity, which is a measure of internal thickness of fluid. So, viscosity, how viscosity is happening? That is happening due to the cohesive forces between the molecules of liquid, right? And by molecular collisions in the gases. So, up to this level, you don't need to go to define the viscosity. But in reality, it is happening with the molecular collision, right? So, molecules are interacting with each other. Because of that, in between them, cohesive forces getting developed, and because of that, it is resisting the motion of one layer of fluid with respect to the another layer of fluid. Right. So there is no fluid with zero viscosity that is keep in mind. Right. In reality, none of the flow can be said as inviscid flow. Right. So flows in which frictional effects are significant are called as viscous flows. Keep in mind. And but there is a condition, right? Let's suppose a flow is taking place on a parallel plate, right? Like in boundary layer concept, you might have studied. If a parallel flat plate is facing the flow, what will happen? Near the surface of the solid means parallel plate, there will be a generation of boundary layer. The boundary layer is basically developing due to the existence of viscosity. Right. It is a very thin region. It's a very thin region. If you are going beyond that region, there will be no effect of viscosity, right? So viscosity effects will be very, very near to the solid surface. So if you are very closer to the solid surface, you will feel the effect of viscosity, or you will feel the effect of internal resistance offered by the fluid. But you are moving away from the solid surface, there will be no effect of viscosity. So the reason right away from the solid surface can be considered as a listed region where there is no effect of viscosity, right? So that's why it is written in many practical interest they are region, right? Typically regions not close to the solid surface where viscous forces are negligible small, or compared to inertial or pressure forces, that region is known as inviscid region, right? But near the solid surface, it will be a viscous region. So this is one of the example, right? This is a famous example. Usually, whenever we are defining the boundary layer, we are taking this kind of case. So this is a solid flat surface, right? And over that flow is taking place. So this is the reason, right? This is very narrow region that you are seeing. This is a leading edge, right, where flow is getting attached, and this is the narrow region, right, where boundary layer is getting formed. So this is the reason, right? This is a thin region where you will feel the viscous right effects, right, this side and this side. That's why this zone is known as viscous flow region, If you are going away from that, right, there will be a very negligible, effect of viscosity. So this region is known as inviscid flow region, right? Both side you can see. All right. So it is very closer to the solid surface. You will find the effect of viscosity. If you are going away from, there is no effect of viscosity.
Sir,
Yes.
excuse me. Sir, excuse me.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, could you just go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, sir.
Is that clear? What
Yes.
I explained, I said that the region near the flat surface, you will feel the effect of internal resistance. If you're going away from it, right, there will be no effect of viscosity, and that region is known as inviscid region, right? Keep in mind. Viscous region will be near the solid surface, so you can say within the boundary layer, you will feel the effect of viscosity. If you are going away from that, there is no effect of viscosity. So you can say it is a type of flow in which there is no effect of viscosity. That is known as inviscid flow. But in reality, in nature, none of the flow is inviscid flow. Keep in mind. For practical purposes, some cases we neglect the effect of viscosity. Next one is internal is external flow. So by the name itself, we can define if flow of fluid is taking place within a closed cavity, or you can say within the pipe, if flow is taking place. Such kind of flow is known as internal flow. If flow is taking place on a flat surface, right, in open environment like over a table or over a flat plate, such kind of flow is known as external flow, right? But in most of the practical cases, right, we are dealing with the external flows, right? Because everything is moving right externally over the surface. Like if you want to study the aerodynamics of a car, right, you will be focusing on the outer surfaces. So outer surfaces, whatever flow is taking place on outer surfaces will be an example of external flow, right? If you want to study the effect of here with behavior within the pipeline, right? Let's suppose you want to see how much how to increase the mass flow rate of fuel right in the pipeline or fuel pipeline, then you have to use the concept of internal flows, right, to understand how to increase the mass flow rate, right? So two kind of flows are there, internal flow and external flow, as per the way in which your flow is moving. So a flow is classified as being internal or external depending on whether flow is forced to flow in a confined channel or over a surface. All right. So the very basic definition. I'm not going to repeat that. Already I covered. So example is water flow in pipe. Right, is an example of internal flow, and air flow over a ball or over a exposed pipe. Right, during a windy day is known as external flow. Next one is compressible and incompressible flow. All right. So when we say incompressible flow, it is a flow in which density, right? Density does not change from point to point, all right? While flow is getting moved from one point to the another point. Let's suppose flow is moving from one point to the another point, there will be no change in density of the medium throughout the flow. Such kind of flow is known as incompressible flow. Compressible flow is the flow in which density changes from point to point, right? Changes from point to point. Such kind of flow known as compressible flow. Very simple definition. So fluid flow is classified as compressible and incompressible depending on the variation of density. Keep in mind this term, variation of density. And what variation in density is taking place? Due to the variation in volume, basically. Your volume will change, because of that density will also change. So incompressibility is an approximation basically, but in reality, none of the flow we can say it is incompressible. But for practical purposes, we are considering water as incompressible. All right. But reality, none is incompressible. It will change. All right. So example is given here, right? Like consider the liquid water, right, and 1 atmosphere, right? If you want to change its density, you need to apply a pressure of 210. If you are applying this much, there will be just 1% change in density. So water is usually considered as incompressible. If you consider the case of gas, even you apply 1 atmosphere, within that, density will change by more than 10 times of initial density, right? So liquid can be considered, liquid can be considered incompressible for practical purposes, but gases cannot. All right. So then we can say about gases, right? Gases, I said, even with this much amount of pressure if you apply, there will be a significant change in density of air, right? Now, next parameter, right? When we are talking about, as I said, that if we are crossing more than 100 meters per second, right, then compressible flow domain will come into picture. So any speed more than 100 meter per second. All right, any speed more than 100 meter per second, you have to define. Yes, you said viscosity is due to cohesive force, but boundary layer is due to adhesive force also. The boundary layer is due to viscosity, right? There is no basically adhesive or cohesive, right? Keep in mind. Boundary layer due to viscosity. If viscosity is present, right? Because of that, boundary layer formation is taking place. All right. That's the one thing. There is no proper, you can define boundary layer with these kind of forces. Only viscosity is present. In that case, it will come into the picture. Okay, so next one you come to the Mach number. This is very important parameter, right? So Mach number usually we will consider for any kind of flow which is crossing 100 meter per second. Keep in mind. So the moment you are going in high speed flow regions, there as per the Mach number you will say at this Mach number this kind of shock formation will take place. At this Mach number this kind of shock wave formation will take place. So Mach number is defined as the speed of any object relative to the speed of sound. Keep in mind, relative to the local speed of sound. That's why Mach number is defined as speed of flow divided by the speed of sound, right? Where c is the speed of sound, whose value is 346 meter per second in air at room temperature at sea level. Right. So based on Mach number, you can define the reasons of flow. Right. If your Mach number is exactly equal to 1, that means your speed of flow is exactly equal to the speed of sound. We can say that is a sonic flow. Sonic flow. So sonic when Mach number is equal to 1. If Mach number is less than 1, that is known as subsonic. If Mach number is greater than 1, that is known as supersonic. If Mach number is very high, right, then 1, you can say if Mach number is greater than 5, like in aeronautical terminology we say, if Mach number is greater than 5, you will say that flow region as hypersonic flow. Hypersonic flow. Right, all these space vehicles, right, re-entry vehicles, they used to travel, right, at a Mach number greater than 5. That is called hypersonic flow regions. So now come to the point, right? At what Mach number we can say the flow is incompressible. As I said that flow velocity lower than 100 meter per second can be considered as incompressible flow, right? So for the gases, if Mach number is less than 0.3, this is the threshold value of Mach number. If my Mach number of flow is less than 0.3, right, then flow can be considered as incompressible flow. Keep in mind, flow can be considered as incompressible flow. So this point you keep in mind. So wherever your flow velocity is less than 100 meter per second, flow can be treated as incompressible flow, whether it is a liquid or whether it is a gas. All right, that's the one important point. Next one is laminar and turbulent flow, right? So laminar flow is the type of flow in which flow moves in such a way that the layers of fluid, right, they will be moving in a well-defined path, right? They may be parallel, they may be inclined, but they will be almost parallel to each other, right? Direction may be anything. They may be inclined at a certain angle, or they may be flowing horizontally, but layers of fluid will be following a definite path. Such kind of fluid is known as laminar flow. Turbulent flow is the flow in which fluid layers move in zigzag way. There is no definite path in which your fluid layers will be moving, right? There will be lot of zigzag, flow region generating within the flow domain. Such kind of known as turbulent flow. So if there is a lot of what we say disturbance in the flow, what will happen? Total energy of flow will be more, right? If it is a laminar flow, in that energy will be less, right, compared to the turbulent flow. That's why laminar flow usually separates earlier than the turbulent flow, because turbulent flow there is a lot of mixing of flow from the exterior boundaries. But in the laminar flow, there is no mixing of flow from the exterior boundaries. So this is the one, this two cases, right? This is a laminar flow where fluid layers, if you look at, right, they are exactly parallel and moving in a well-defined path, right? But in turbulent flow, there is a lot of disturbances, right? They are moving in zigzag way. This is the case of turbulent flow, right? This is the two basic, types of flow that we usually deal with when we are dealing with the boundary layer study, right? Laminar flow, turbulent flow. There is another flow, right, in between, right? In between this and this, there is a region where a lot of disturbances will be there. That is called transition zone. So till now, no one has formulated any mathematics to study the transient flow, or you can say the flow in the transition zone, right, where it is getting transformed from the laminar to the turbulent flow region. Turbulent flow region. So this is the transition zone. You look at here, some portion is looking like laminar, and immediately after that it is becoming the turbulent. So this zone is known as transition, right, which is connecting the laminar with turbulent. So a flow that alternates between being laminar turbulent is known as transition. So how to define this is laminar flow, this is a turbulent flow, this is a transition flow. There is a parameter called Reynolds number, right? So Howard Reynolds in 1880s did an experiment, and he formulated a non-dimensional term that is called Reynolds number, right? Reynolds number. So based on the Reynolds number value, you can say this flow is laminar, this flow is turbulent, this flow is transition. So take the famous example of boundary layer, right, again. So usually any of the textbook, right, they start boundary layer definition from a flow over a flat plate, right. So if you consider the case of flow over a flat plate, right, that boundary layer is taking place. Reynolds number, usually you will find critical Reynolds number is value is 5 into 10 to the power 5 something, right. So if your Reynolds number is less than that, right, then you can say flow is laminar. If it is going beyond that, it is known as turbulent flow. If it is exactly nearby that, we can say transition zone. We can say transition zone. That is applicable for external flow. If it is an internal flow within the pipe, right, if flow is taking place within the pipe, for the Reynolds number value is very, very less. Critical Reynolds number for the internal flow is just 2300, right? Some books used to say 2300, some experiment have predicted that it is just 2000, right? So critical Reynolds number is between 2000 to 2300, right, for the internal flow, and for external flow it is 5 into 10 to the power 5, right? So that you can remind, this is critical Reynolds number. Below it, flow will be treated as laminar. Above it, it will be turbulent flow, right? So based on Reynolds number, you can differentiate between the laminar and turbulent flow. Next one is natural and forced flow. Natural means the flow will have inherent capacity to move due to the density gradient. You don't need to force the flow to the domain. The moment you will leave the flow, it will start moving. Like you talk about the airflow motion, right? It is happening in the universe. That is the case of natural flow, right? Due to the density gradient, some regions there will be lower density, another region there will be higher density. So flow will start moving from higher density zone to the lower density zone. So due to density gradient, right, there will be a natural flow of air that is known as natural flow. Forced flow, where you are forcing the flow to happen, right? Let's suppose in the case of compressor, right, or in the case of turbine, you are forcing the flow to happen. Such kind of cases are known as forced flow. So very basic definition. So fluid is said to be natural or forced depending on how the flow motion is initiated. In forced flow, fluid is forced to flow over a surface or in a pipe by external means of such as pump or fan. Right? In natural flow, any fluid motion is due to the natural means such as buoyant effects, right, which manifests itself as the rise of warmer to lighter, right, or hotter to the cooler. If you talk about the heat flow, that happens, naturally from hotter side to the cooler side. Such kind of flow is natural flow and forced flow. Next one is steady and unsteady. When you talk about steady means it is fixed with respect to time. So we can say steady flow is the flow in which fluid properties, right, pressure, volume, temperature of pressure, density, and temperature, right, do not change with respect to time at any point. But there may be variation in the property with respect to space. If they are moving from one point to the another point, there will be variation in properties. But at a single point, there is no variation in any of the properties of the fluid. That is known as steady flow, right? Unsteady flow, where there is a lot of variation in properties of fluid. So the term steady implies no change at a point with respect to time. Keep in mind, with respect to time. The opposite of this is unsteady, right? So in fluid mechanics, usually unsteady is the most general term, right? Sometimes people used to say that is a transient, right? Transient. So transient is something, right? All of a sudden it will happen, right? Like in Thermodynamics, you might have studied, work is a transient form of energy. If it is within the system, you will not feel it. Immediately after the boundary, you are feeling it. So all of a sudden, it's getting converted into the work. So transient and unsteady. So unsteady flow is the flow in which fluid property changes with respect to time at a single point. But in a steady flow, at a single point, right, there will be no change in the property of any kind of flow parameters. So example, right? Take the example of developing flow, right? Developing flow is getting developing. So consider the case of a rocket engine. If you are just firing the engine, right? So within the combustion chamber, the moment you start the ignition, what will happen? Your flow of fuel, right, or you can say propellant and oxidizer starts burning. When they start burning, pressure will develop, right? That zone is known as developing flow. That is called as developing flow. Once it is fully developed, then you will get the thrust, right? Then only you will get the thrust. So that's the example of transient effect, right? Pressure build up inside the rocket engine, and then finally flow accelerate. The moment your flow gets accelerated, you get the thrust. Right, so many devices such as turbine, compressor, boilers, condenser, these are steady flow devices. Right, so within that device, your flow properties will not change. But if you take the inlet and outlet, there will be change in properties of the flow domain. Right, so all the turbine, compressor, boiler, condenser, heat exchanger, these are known as steady flow devices. Steady flow devices. Keep in mind. Next one is one dimensional, two dimensional, and three dimensional flow. So depending on the direction of flow, you can say it is one dimensional, two dimensional, or a three dimensional flow. So somebody is saying it is a one dimensional flow. That means what? The flow will be traveling in one direction only. It may be either x-axis or y-axis or z-axis, right? Usually three-dimensional flow will be said like x, y, z, right? X, y, z. So it may be either one x-axis or y-axis or z-axis, right? So you can consider that one. So I will be writing here. So let's suppose if I am saying flow usually defined by velocity. So if I say velocity is a function of only x, right? One parameter, and time. Time will always be there because whenever you analyzing any open system, you have to make your system steady, right? That's why every time you are studying steady cases, right? So if this is the case, right, only it is varying with respect to x. So this is the x, right?
Sir,
Yeah,
sir,
yeah, yeah. Tell me.
actually, if any flow is practically is three-dimensional source, no, sir. Then how we differentiate one-dimensional, two-dimensional, sir?
Yeah, yeah.
The flow
I
is
will come to
always a
that point.
three-dimensional
Don't
flow.
worry. That's
Okay, sir.
yes, yes. Always all natural flows are three-dimensional flows. If they are moving in external flow domain, right? If flow is taking place within the pipe, what is the case? Boundaries are now rigid. Boundaries are rigid, so there will be no change in vertical direction. There will be only change in oriental direction or direction in which or you can say the along the length of the pipe there will be a change in properties, and that flow will be treated as one-dimensional flow. Right? Flow within a pipe will be considered as an example of one-dimensional flow. Is that clear?
Okay, sir.
If we are saying air flow in the universe, right? Here we don't have, we cannot put any limit in that. So in that case, this will be the case of three-dimensional flow. Air flow may vary in all the three dimensions, right? If it is an open case or external flow, will be treated as three-dimensional flow. So all the natural flows which are happening are three-dimensional flow. But in practical purposes, we can make them one-dimensional or two-dimensional or three-dimensional. So if flow properties are varying with respect to only one direction, right, that is known as one-dimensional flow. So this is the one case which I said here, velocity is varying only with respect to x-axis and time, right? Time variation also will be there, right? Second case, if it is a two-dimensional, right, then two parameters will be changing. So we can say velocity is varying with respect to x, y, and t. Keep in mind, t will always be there. T, why we are considering? We are considering the case of unsteady. But if we are making it steady, t will be zero, right? There will be no change with respect to time. So that is known as two-dimensional flow. If we consider three-dimensional flow, most of the natural flows are three-dimensional. For that, V is a function of all the three, right? And the time, and time. So this is the 3D flow, right? This is 2D flow, and this is 1D flow. Clear? So as per the direction of flow, right, you can classify them into three categories: one, two, and three dimension. So take the case of this, right? This is one of the case of one-dimensional flow, right? It's a one-dimensional flow. This is a pipe. These boundaries are resident, so nothing will go beyond that, right? So now velocity, you look at velocity is a function of r and z. So r is this, right? R is radius of pipe and z is this. So along the radius there is a change, right? Change in velocity, and along the length also there is change in velocity, right? In which zone up to here, up to this point, there is a change in velocity taking place along the radius, along the length. So this zone, starting from this point up to this point, is known as developing flow. So in the developing flow regime, flow will be two-dimensional flow, right? Because there is a change in velocity across the radius direction as well as along the length direction. Once it is becoming fully developed flow, if you reach here, right? Look at here. Now it is fully developed. Once flow is fully developed, this will be treated as only one dimensional flow because there is a change in velocity along the length direction, but nothing is happening in this direction. Look at here, it was developing only, right? So this was developing, finally it's becoming full velocity profile. So this is now fully developed. So velocity is a function of along radius only, right, up at this point. But here it was changing along the length as well, right? Length and radius. So in the developing zone, it is two-dimensional. Fully developed case will be considered as one-dimensional. Here flow will be for most of the practical purpose if you want to analyze, right, effect of drag only, right, resistance only. So you have to focus only on front and back, right, what is happening here. So if just you are focusing over here and here, you can treat the flow two-dimensional, but in reality it's three-dimensional, right? Because we are not considering the effect on sideways, we are not considering this side, right? So we are neglecting this. If we are just wanting to know how much air resistance will be there over the automotive car, then we can simulate that thing with the help of two-dimensional flow itself, right? Two-dimensional flow itself. So we will be focusing along the length, right? And as well as along this direction, along vertical direction. So flow over it and car can be considered as two-dimensional flow. Ideal and real flow. So ideal flow is a flow in which density remains constant. There is no surface tension. There is another criteria. Zero surface tension, right? And viscosity is zero, right? These two important property and it is steady. So you can say flow which is steady, incompressible, in which case is known as ideal flow. So for in the case of ideal flow, you can say that generally viscosity is zero, right? Density is constant, right? There is no variation with respect to time also, right? So it is a steady, incompressible, inviscid flow is known as ideal flow. In reality, none of the flow is ideal flow, but for all practical purposes, air can be considered as ideal flow, right? For all practical purposes. But in reality, air is not an ideal flow, keep in mind. So these are the three important properties, right, for ideal flow. Viscosity zero, right, density constant. With respect to time, there is no change in property. So you can say steady, incompressible, inviscid flow is known as ideal flow, or another term is known as potential flow. Sometimes we say that as potential flow. Ideal flow. Second case is real flow. Real flow will have definite value of viscosity and density will not be constant in the case of real flow. So real flow is a flow, right, in which density, you can say it is a compressible, viscous, and unsteady, right? Unsteady. It may change with respect to time as well. So unsteady, compressible, and viscous flow is known as a real flow, right? So like that you can define. So ideal and real flow. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so this is very, very important, definition, keep in mind. In reality, all the flows are real flow, right? If it is a real flow will have definite viscosity. Its density cannot be always treated as constant, right? It may be steady or unsteady depending on the type of application. Such kind of flow is a real flow. Ideal flow in which it is incompressible, always we consider that as incompressible, zero viscosity, right? And steady. So these are three important parameters. Next one is uniform flow and non-uniform flow. So uniform flow is the flow in which velocity of flow, right? Velocity of flow at a given time does not change with respect to space, right? Velocity of the flow at a given time does not change with respect to the space coordinate. So if I say this is velocity, I will say dou v by dou s at a given time is not changing with respect to space. This kind of flow is known as uniform flow. Clear or not? If so, example of this, you can say, right, fully developed flow in a pipe is an example of uniform flow. So, velocity is now fixed, right, for fully developed flow. But developing flow will not be considered as uniform flow. In that case, velocity is varying, right? That is called non-uniform flow. So, opposite of this is known as non-uniform flow. Non-uniform flow is a flow in which velocity at a given time or at a given instant varies with respect to the space coordinate. So you can say tau v by tau s, right, at a given time, right, it is going to be zero. So this became opposite. So this is the first case of uniform. This is for non-uniform. The non-uniform is with respect to space, right? There will be change in velocity. That is called non-uniform flow. So this first case, this dou v by dou s at time is not equal to zero is for non-uniform flow, and dou v by dou s at time is equal to zero is for uniform flow. So for uniform flow, velocity will not change with respect to space, right? For non-uniform flow, velocity will change with respect to space. Is that clear? So the case, second case of non-uniform flow, you can say, if flow is taking place on an inclined surface, right, that will be considered as non-uniform flow. Next one is rotational flow and irrotational flow. By the name itself, you can say rotational flow is the flow in which flow is getting rotating, right, while it's moving from one point to the another point. Such kind of flow is known as rotational flow. So, or you can say the fluid molecules, right, or particles rotates about its own mass center, right, about its own center of mass while moving from one point to the another point. So I will draw it schematically. If I draw, flow is going like this, right, from first position to the second position. So let's suppose I am considering one particle here. This is the initial condition, right? It's like that. Then it became like this, right? The movement is coming here. Then it became horizontal, right? Then it became like this, and finally it became like this. So this kind of flow domain, right, in which fluid particles are rotating, right, while flow is moving from one point to another point is known as rotational flow. Irrotational flow, right, the type of flow in which fluid particles do not rotate about their mass center while flow is moving from one point to the another point. Such kind of flow is known as irrotational flow. So in this case, initial condition is also like that, and will be going like this throughout the flow domain, right, from 1 to 2, from 1 to 2. So this is known as irrotational, right? And first one is rotational. Clear? First one is rotational, second one is called irrotational. That's all. So we have covered almost all the type of flow. So any doubt in this?